From Pee-wee to Dumbo and everything in between, join us every Thursday in April for Filmography Tim Burton. Our 5-part season will break down all 19 of Burton's feature-length films to date in detail. Follow Filmography on Spotify or wherever else you find your podcasts.
Consequence Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. If you're not a subscriber already, take a second before we get too deep into this and hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening to. Maybe that's where you get your favorite podcast from, or maybe it's somewhere like YouTube or Spotify. We have so many different ways that you can hear this. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest is Karen O. You know Karen O of the Yeah Yeah Yes. Her new record is with Danger Mouse, and they've done an album called Lux Prima. We're going to talk about what that collaboration was like and how each other's style affected the other one's style. We'll discuss songs like Drown and Turn on the Lights and Woman, one of my favorite singles of the year that harkens all the way back to that 60s Phil Spector sound. The last few years were also a big transitional period for Karen O. She hit the reset button after becoming a mom for the first time and having her son, and it's absolutely had an effect on how she sees the rest of her career and wants to proceed from here on out. We'll also hear about covering the Smashing Pumpkins' Bullet with Butterfly Wings for the Amazon show Hannah, the feminine energy that is all over this record, a really interesting art installation that's going to accompany Lux Prima in deluxe sound that she'll tell you all about. And of course, we'll talk some about the Yeah Yeah Yeahs as well. It's Kyle Meredith with Karen O.
Hey Kyle, this is Karen O calling.
Well, congratulations. I do want to say this. I have been a fan for the long run, and we've never been able to talk, but I've so appreciated all the art that you've put out through the years, and I am so in love with this new record, Lux Prima. It's so good.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
No problem. You know, when a lot of artists say they don't want to repeat themselves, they're sort of full of shit. But I really believe you because you've kind of proven that every time. Like, you know, they always sound different, but each one sounds better than the last, and that's completely commendable. I mean, that's a hell of a feat.
Oh man, flattery will get you everywhere. Yeah, I mean, like that's something I strive for, but it's like as you say, it's not an easy task, you know. But when it's like coming from like a sort of pure intention, you know, like of being like, yeah, like, you know, I just really want to make something rad and new, then you have a better chance than, you know, if you're doing it just to do it for the sake of making something different, you know.
Yeah, and I'm sure that does, you know, matter who you're collaborating with, whether it's, you know, your old bandmates and the Yeah Yeah Yeahs or with Brian Danger Mouse this time. When I hear what he's done on this record, you know, cinematic, a lot of people are using that word, and it's not the first time he's done that. Yeah. And I sort of wonder, like, does his arrangements change your style of writing? Do you write differently depending on who you're with?
Yes and no, I guess. I mean, like I'm super open. Like I'm very like impulsive, open, like spontaneous. You know, when like in like a sort of studio setting, like almost like a little kid, basically. You know, which is like kind of like is where you want to be. So you know, I just like I go in and you know I'm just like I guess my main hope, which is like something that Brian like kind of had that I wasn't sure that he was going to have, was just like this total openness to like just explore and have like sort of like and to play in a way, you know. Mm-hmm. Because like the two of us like are like neither of us are like like musicians per se, and like because of that, like it just like kind of frees us up. We just like tinker around like like a couple of like kids on like on a Wurlitzer or like on like acoustic or on like he has like like Brian's great with like bringing like sort of like he can whip up like a drum beat like pretty quick on like a drum machine program or something like that, and he's great at that. So if like you don't really need much more to start a song than like a beat and maybe like a simple melody, and then like the melodies just start popping off in my head and stuff. So like it was really small, like it was just like a very small operation that like turned out to sound very big, you know, in the end. So.
I mean, you get that from the lead track that's so expansive and cool, but I'll bring up another one, and I like so many of the songs on here, but like talking about this perfect melding of the two of you would Drown. When I listen to Drown, like musically, that sounds like drowning. And I don't know if it's a chicken or the egg thing,
Right.
but I think you could take your vocals even off there. It would still sound like drowning, and that's where I started wondering when one of you starts to influence the other in one way or the other, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that song was definitely more of like Brian's baby, and like it was one of the main songs or only songs that he like kind of like, you know, contributed some lyrics to too. Like it was like definitely like Brian's soul in that song, you know. But like, you know, we were listening to a lot of sort of psychedelic music and like kind of shared a love for it, and like I think that was like kind of that's the reason why there's that crazy vocal effect on my vocals that sounds like I'm underwater. Because like we're like, whoa, that sounds trippy, dude. No, but like it's just like there's a chemistry, you know, and like in sort of like our like I think our, you know, explorative nature or something like that worked really well.
I think another reviewer called you both serial collaborators. You know?
Yeah.
So
True.
it's like
It's true. Yeah.
So you were going to get together at some points, you know, like just the odds
Yeah.
in the world that it was going to happen like that.
Yeah.
So when you put two serial collaborators together, I mean, I don't know. Do you? I get maybe you've already answered, but do you write like co-writers at that point? Because I don't know if one of you is trying to lean to the other one to say, no, you go first.
Yeah, like the only rules, I guess, and this is interesting because it's like, you know, I've worked with a lot of producers, and this is like the first time like anyone had really like sort of voiced this rule before. But he was like, the only rules, like, and he didn't like say it flat out, but you know, he's been talking about it since after we wrote the record. But it kind of got established like early on, was just like, you know, you have to have the freedom to be able to tell the other person that you're working with that you don't like what they're doing, you know? And then two is just like, you just have to like also like have the confidence to be able to make mistakes and like also happy accidents, and not be afraid to like make an ass out of yourself, basically, you know. And like and that's like actually a beautiful, like, it's like kind of a beautiful way to work, you know, because it's like, you know, there's so much struggle when you're in a studio with just sort of like, because like artists are like, you know, like intrinsically really sort of insecure and self-conscious, you know. So establishing early on that, like, you know, hey, like, you know, if you don't like it, just let me know. I'm not going to take it personally. You know, like that, like, is really, that's like super dope. And then also saying like, and don't be afraid to like, you know, to do something like that seems crazy or stupid or corny or whatever. Just go for it. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But just having that trust, it was quite important. And he kind of like, you know, I think that there's like, we both respected each other enough to be like, okay, you know, we're working on that level of trust.
Well, you sort of going in that cinematic direction. Like, how similar was this Lux Prima record to what you were doing with something like Hannah? You know, and itself specifically made for cinema.
Yeah, it's different. Like it's like similar and different. I'm like, it's both. Well, no, the thing is that like, you know, like, yeah, for that, like when I work for like when I do like, you know, almost it's like an assignment, you know, for Hannah, where I'm like really trying, like, where I'm working towards like, you know, creating like a mood and a tone that like matches like what they're looking for like, you know, the character and the emotion of like what they, you know, want to capture. It's like I'm like definitely like kind of tailoring what I'm doing to try and meet that and help like, you know, capture that emotion. But like with Lux Prima, it's more like, it's like this funny, like, it's like kind of almost like, yeah, it's like a reverse soundtrack, right? Where you're like, you know, like it reminds you, like the music reminds you of like all these movies. Like there's like, certainly there's like gotta be one reference that's like where this is coming from, but it isn't. It's like this kind of like mush of references, like, you know, that like it's like this kind of like three-headed monster of a film that like of many films that you've taken in and maybe you know that just doesn't exist yet, you know, and so you're kind of like writing a soundtrack for a film that doesn't exist yet, but like feels like it does, you know, if that makes any sense.
No, I'd watch that movie, and not even knowing I'd watch that movie. It's so. Real quick, while I touched on Hannah, I do want to ask, because your version of Bullet with Butterfly Wings is so powerful. Was that your idea, or did they present that to you?
They presented that to me, and they presented it just like literally like the week of Christmas. so they're like, we want you to do this, and we want you to do it like, you know, like during like basically Christmas. And I was like, okay, I'm game, you know, like this seems like a cool opportunity. But yeah, but it's something that they had sort of like, I think the music department there had kind of like, you know, picked out and they, you know, and they figured it all out on their side, and then they just asked if I would do a rendition of it, you know, for them. So and I guess like, you know, they told me afterwards that like Billy Corgan, like, you know, I mean, I think he's like licensed it only like 2 or 3 times, and he's like never let anyone cover it or something like that. Like, and that was like kind of a big deal that, like, you know, and I really appreciate that. That was like really cool, you know, that he was cool with me doing whatever I was gonna do to his precious anthems. So like, so that was really rad. Yeah.
I mean, it's totally twisted inside out, and to have such an iconic song like that, you know, done in that way, it's you can't help but just kind of stop and listen, you know, when that comes on.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that was fun.
Going into this, you know, as the story goes, you had taken time off from parenting. And as I read, you hit the reset button after having your son. And is that a rethinking of what you wanted your career to be from here on? Did that ever cross your mind, like in that way?
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah, because I mean, you know, I just had like a feeling like I've never like I was just talking with Shirley Manson from Garbage and stuff. It just like blows my mind because she like loves like to tour. It's like she like just loves it, you know.
Oh yeah.
It's like her favorite thing, you know. And for me, like it just never. It was like a glove that never really fit that well for me, you know. And like it always felt like, you know, it was just like kind of a struggle for me, especially after having like my son. I was just thinking like, okay, like, you know, I've been in band for like almost 20 years, you know, a woman in my like about to hit my 40s, like what do I want, like, you know, in my life, you know, do I want to be on the road that much? Maybe less, you know, definitely less, you know. So like how can I like, you know, how can I like dive into like just all these other ways to use like music in a way that trips my trigger, you know, and also try and make a living off of it. It was definitely going through my mind, just like kind of thinking like trying to have a rethink of just like, yeah, what my career could look like in a different sort of perspective, from a different perspective, I guess, from that perspective.
Maybe it's because
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say maybe it's because I'm near 40 at this point because I'm 37. But if I were an artist right now, I would totally take that road. I would say I'll play a few shows a year here and there, but I'm just going to crank out records, you know?
Yeah. I love it. I mean, like, it feels like a luxury to be able to make a record and not have to tour it, you know? I mean, like, it's just not something that I would ever, like, you know, would have ever been, like, you know, a reality for me, like, you know, until, like, more recently, I think. And we'll see how it goes. But it's, like, you know, it's, like, tricky, you know, the music world is, like, it's definitely tougher than it used to be. And, you know, you just never know, like, where your next paycheck's going to come from. So you have to be, like, you have to be creative, you know, and stuff. So. Yeah.
I mean, touring the record aside, do you have that desire at all even to play these lives at one-offs or whatever that looks like?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I definitely have, I'm definitely game to do it. I think Danger Mouse less so. That's not his comfort, not his comfort zone so much, but and also, like, you know, he has a lot of experience with, like, doing these, like, pretty lush records, and then, like, them being kind of more studio records and not really, like, you know, like, live records so much. But, like, I don't know, like, I just, like, you know, I'm game to give it a shot. And I think, like, if we just, you know, did a few special shows, I think it could be really fun. So yeah. I'm game.
I might be stepping out of the line here, but would you ever absorb these songs into any of your other projects?
I mean, like, probably not, like, with the band, with the Yeah-Yeahs, but you know, maybe, yeah, it could become part of my solo catalog. You know, I think Brian would be, like, totally, I think he'd be happy for me to whip out a few Lux Prima songs if I like did a sort of, you know, solo show or whatever. But you know, it's all to be determined, I guess.
Right. So I'll go back to the record for a moment too, because "Woman" is one of the most powerful singles easily of the year, and it's a lot of fun.
Oh, awesome!
On
thank
top
you.
of that,
thank you. Yeah, exactly.
And the thing I like about it, you know, I love that it takes that '60s sound and a modern conversation that seems like it was stolen from the artist who created the sound, symbiotic in a way, if that makes sense. I mean, it feels like you're giving a gift back to the past.
Oh, right. That's awesome. I mean, that's like, yeah, like that's a real, you know, it's a thing that you like, that it's like really great to do as an artist. Is like, and some of like my favorite music, you know, of all time is like, yeah, it's kind of like timeless, right? Where it reminds you of something, it's familiar, but it's new, you know? Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, I think with "Woman," yeah, we definitely had like a bit of a Phil Spector-y, like beat, at least in mind, to kick it off and stuff. But yeah, I've said it before, but I do feel like I could have wrote it at like any any point in my career, as far as just like that's how I've just always felt like, you know, about just women and like in celebrating the strength and where we like connect and can like band together rather than like, you know, sort of like this what like happens a lot, which is just sort of like a competitive feeling that you have with other women. And that, you know, I feel like you know, this one is like really like there's been a lot of women kind of banding together in this like climate and stuff, and it's cool because like I think there was a lot of years where that wasn't like really cool, you know. It was like seemed like it's like a lot of women are kind of more isolated and stuff. So it was like it really celebrates strength and like sort of unity, you know. So, and like and like also just like just being a badass, you know.
Well, I think the words you used several times is more feminine energy. Like there's something about this record, if it was summed up, it was more feminine energy. And I thought that's interesting because I've never questioned your energy in any sense. So I was wondering what that was maybe in comparison to.
I mean, I guess it's just like, you know, one thing about like maturing as an artist and stuff and as a person, like, you know, like a lot of my like impulses when I was like coming up with the band and stuff, they're super raw and they're like super like, you know, just like real and just like streaming out of me, like just like, you know, just authentic and stuff, but like totally like in a way like unaware, you know, of like of like where they're coming from, or like, it was just like from the black cloud, you know, that was like, you know, hovering over me or whatever. I don't know. It was just like like as I've grown and as I've like gotten older, like I don't know, I have like a more of like just like a sort of just awareness of like like what it means to be a woman and what it means to be like, you know, like an artist and like I don't know, like, and so I think that like, so when I do like when I talk about it, there being more feminine energy, there is like just like it's not like it's more deliberate, but there's just more thought that like kind of goes into it and like tuning in more like with like I guess more intentionally in a way, but yeah, I think it's just that is like the change, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, a lot of artists, you know, it seems like through the years they may trade wisdom for energy, and I don't get that from this, you know, because but that song specifically, it still has both of those so much.
Yeah, it's still in there. It's still in there.
And a quick compliments to Turn Out the Light too, because I love that. And while that might be more of I don't know, the disco flair of the record, for whoever said that that song and some others leaned on the side of trip hop, made me think of all the genres that's come around. That's the one that I really wish somebody would take the horns for and make a trip hop resurgence. And maybe this album is the closest we've got to that.
Well, yeah. Maybe we're just like we're just giving them a reminder that should come back. Yeah, I agree. It's a cool one. It's a cool genre, trip hop.
I'll do the obligatory yeah stuff because I don't know. Is that still in the plans? Is that going to happen again?
Yeah, I mean, like we're doing some shows like in May. 2020 is like wide open for me. You know, I just like I don't know, like I haven't really been thinking. You know, I mean, I get asked like like as you say, quite obligatory quite often about these, especially in interviews and stuff. But but I just haven't like thought about it a lot. I haven't like put a lot of thought to it. But like, you know, all I know is that like I've just been on a kind of one track mind with like, you know, getting this Lux Prima record out and this installation that we're about to do with it and stuff, and just getting through the year, and then I think like, you know, when things slow down, then, you know, then I'll be able to, you know, make some moves in that world or in that direction. It's just like right now I haven't like thought about it a lot, I guess, but it's like, you know, as of now, yeah are you know, we're alive and well, and I know it's been a long time since we put out a record, but there's been a lot happening in our lives, you know, like Brian and I both have kids now, and like everybody's got their own things going on, and so it's just like kind of, I guess we'll just see when the time feels right to really feel the inspiration to make a solid Yayaz record, you know?
Yeah. I know relationships change through the years and life changes. Does it still feel like a band in the same way that it did maybe in the early days? Like, you know, for some bands it feels like a gang, you know, in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, like we're like family. It's like family. Like I think a band is the closest thing to family that like you come across, you know, like including like with the sort of the roles that get like, you know, get assigned, and like the sibling rivalry. but also with just like the sort of unconditional love, you know, that like it kind of feels like you're like kind of in it like, you know, till the end. It's like kind of like a blood by blood almost, you know. So like you know, it's different, like because like we're like we started when we were kids, and now we're all adults, but yeah, it's kind of just in our DNA now. Like the yeah songs and like sort of that imprint on us is like forever going to be on us. So I think it's
Yeah. No,
it's still there.
I love
Yeah.
it. You mentioned the installation coming up. What's that about? Because I
Yeah.
just saw the pics of it. It looks cool, whatever it is.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be cool. It's like, oof, we've been working on this for like a year, so we're just like gearing up for it finally to be out. But I think like first and foremost, it's like a listening experience. It's like kind of a sound bath of sorts because you will be drowned in sound with this, be coupled with Meyer sound for it, and there's like sort of you're surrounded by speakers, and there's a centerpiece in the middle of the installation that's like surround speakers too, and there's one above you. So we mixed it like in like I don't know like what you can call it, like it's like kind of like I guess deluxe like quadraphonic sound or something like that. So like just like even like as like listening to the record this way is like gonna be like or to some of the songs on the record. There's only 5 songs in the installation, but we really want to take you on a trip. It's like supposed to be like kind of this portal like into like the best places you can go when you're listening to music. We're like enhancing that with light and some other sensory things. It's just gonna be kind of like a bath for your senses in a way, I think. But first and foremost, kind of like a communal listening experience in a way that like people don't normally listen to music, So it should be quite cool.
Yeah. Have you experienced it yourself already?
No, I mean like we it was like a few weekends ago we mixed it, for in a huge room similar to the room that it's going to be in, and that was like that in itself was like kind of mind blowing. Just like being able to throw like a background vocal like sort of spatially around the room and where do the strings live when they come in, like like they feel like they're emanating from the center and like moving like a wave like outside. It's just like incredible to just like the way that we can mix it for this room and it's just like it's just like I feel like once people hear music this way, it's going to set a standard. People are going to be like, I want people to hear my music like that. It's like going to be like the new standard of how you want to listen, and like this sort of surround, like this sort of like it's not 7.2, but it's like it's like a totally immersive sound experience.
No, that's what I'm thinking. Like it would be a completely spoiling situation after I hear that. You can't look back. There's no looking back.
I mean, it's cool. It's cool. So yeah, it'll be cool. It'll be definitely worth checking out.
Right on. When does that run?
It opens on the 18th of April, so in like a week and a half. It's like it's in between the Coachellas maybe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so maybe it's in between the Coachellas. It's on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the Marciano Art Foundation here in LA. So.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Big congratulations on this record, Lux Prima. I love it. If you haven't noticed that already, with my compliments.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. No, seriously, thank you so much. So thanks.
Yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you. And I can't wait to hear whatever comes next.
Sweet. Thanks so much, dude. I really, hopefully it'll be decent.
I'm sure it will. All right.
Okay, cool.
All right, take care.
Okay,
bye. Right. Oh, man, my thanks to Karen O. As I totally geek out through that entire conversation, Karen O and Danger Mouse's album is called Lux Prima, and it's out now. Before you head out of here, if you haven't already, please do hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening from. And again, you can do that wherever you get your favorite podcasts, including iTunes and Apple Podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube and Spotify if those are your preferences. And either way, please leave us a note, a review, a rating, whatever you can do. It all helps. I promise you that. After that, head to WFPK.org, where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern, where you can also find some bonus episodes of this series. ConsequenceOfSound.net, they've got all your music and film news. You can find me at Twitter at Kyle Meredith and Facebook/Kyle Meredith. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.